LoreWarrior Campaigns. The Galtor Campaign. The Galtor system is likely one of the most hotly contested worlds on the Davian-Kurita border. Since the 2300s, the world has been an important breadbasket for the surrounding systems, and while under the control of the Star League, was capable of feeding over 1 billion troops. Of course, this made the system strategically valuable, so much so that the League would construct a military base and establish a permanent military presence on the world until the collapse of the League in the late 2700s. During the Succession Wars, the system became a vital food source for the Federated Suns and Draconis Combine, and after regaining control of Galtor again after a bloody campaign against Kurita in 3022, the gears began to turn for a major military operation. When computer readouts indicated the system still held lost Star League technology, Hansa Davian began to formulate a plan to bait Kuritan troops to the world and ambush them. No one believed the world still held any League equipment, but when those computer readouts turned out to be accurate, the trap quickly turned into a race, and eventually a full-blown war for control of the ancient site. This is the Galtor Campaign. But before we dive into the specifics of the military actions and the events surrounding the battle, I want to first look at Galtor 3, the site of this famous campaign. An excerpt from the Comstar Encyclopedia Trimillennium from Comstar Press 3024 describes Galtor in the following terms. Galtor 3, ruled by the Grand Duchy of Galtor, Zongqua Renmin Galtor Guo. Solar system is a spectral class F, transit time of 9 to 12 days. It's the third of 6 planets. No other planets in the system are habitable. Galtor has 2 moons, both less than 5 kilometers wide. The moons are called Temos and Froma, after 2 founding fathers of the colony. People, that's a population density of 36.4 million, with 2.7 per square kilometer. It has cities of New Delhi, with a 2 million population, New Wuhan City of 1.5 million, and Changli, with 600,000. An age distribution of 26% between the ages of 0 to 14, 57.7% between 15 and 59, and 15% at 60 or above. Ethnic groups comprise Han Chinese at 46% and Anglo-Irish at 45%, with Mongol, Korean, Manchu and others at 9%. Religions of Confucianism, Buddhism, Star Nihilistic and Roman Catholic predominate. Geography. The habitable area consists of 13.3 million square kilometers divided into 3 continents. The first continent of Air has a spine of vast mountains and a broad, fertile plain cut by numerous rivers. The other 2 continents consist mostly of desert or mountains, except for coastal floodplains and tropical jungles along the equator. Topography is described with the Wagnall Plain being an immensely large area, well watered and eminently suitable for cultivation. Only 32% of the plain is currently being cultivated, down from 53% during Star League era. 4 great river systems known as the Changjiang, the Dublin, the Rufa and the Xijiang provide water for these vast farmlands. Government has its capital in New Delhi. The government type is a feudal monarchy, governor being appointed by Prince Hansa Davian. The head of state is Governor Skiles O'Hanlon. Local divisions is 22 provinces with 2 autonomous regions, with a defence spending of 8.5%. The economy mainly focuses around the industries of textiles, food processing, fertilisers and genetic crop research, with chief crops being wheat, rice, barley, oats, katam corn, soybeans, sugar corn, hay, sugar, wine and fruit. Minerals include oil, lead, zinc, iron, sulfur, silver, copper and gold, with crude energy reserves of 0.2 Q units. Remaining resources were plundered by Kuritan forces. It produces meat of 5.9 million metric tons of beef, the same amount in pork, and 350,000 metric tons of lamb, with 33% of the planet being arable. Transport is provided by monorail and magnetic rail traffic, and over 6 million passenger cars and 2 million commercial vehicles exist. Civilian aviation has 400 million passenger kilometer space, and communications is a video system with all transmissions, and daily newspapers of 400 per 1,000 population. Life expectancy at birth for a male is 66 years, and for a female is 73 years. There's an 89% literacy rate on the planet, with a 13.3% infant mortality per 1,000 live births. Early history. As far back as the planet's founding, the two national groups comprising the first colonists have fought each other. The Pan-Oriental Co-Prosperity Inner-Sphere Council was one of many organizations that sponsored the Eastern way of life among its prospective colonists. Its computers gave the Galtor system a AAA rating and listed it as a prime prospect. At the same time, the Free Irish National Federation classified Galtor as a system ripe for colonization and financed the initial exploration. Within 10 years, the two groups landed colonists and began separate colonies. 6 months later, hostilities had escalated into full-scale war. Although both sides possessed only a few tanks and an artillery piece or two, the destruction was terrible. Then plague, always a fear on New Worlds, broke out amongst the entire population. In a historic document called the Webster Compact, the leaders of the Pan-Orientals and the Free Irish agreed to an armistice in order to fight the sickness together. For the first time, both sides stopped considering themselves Irish or Oriental and considered themselves Galtorians. In the centuries that followed the Webster Compact, the world became peaceful and prosperous. Agriculture became its leading export as the rich plains of the central continent were cultivated. Water was harvested from the Arctic wastes, and the native plants and animals proved extremely malleable to genetic engineering. Soon, Galtor became a breadbasket for surrounding worlds. The Age of War had little effect on the Galtorians, who had traded their agriculture with anyone who paid in hard currency. Not until the rise of the Star League in the late 26th century was Galtor under any outside political control. At first, the Galtorians welcomed the League. The Articles of Unification gave agricultural planets a special status, which Galtor's leaders shrewdly manipulated to their advantage. As the number of populated worlds increased, Galtor's position in space became more important. The Star League built a military base on the planet, and within 10 years, the military became the largest customer for Galtor's harvest. By 2725, Galtor's produce fed 1 billion soldiers on 1,000 different worlds. The following section is an excerpt from a publication from Skiles O'Hanlon, who at the time of writing was the head of state in the capital of New Delhi. Outbreak of War. Some say that the hand of God brought on the years of war and grief following the collapse of the Star League. Some say it was economic necessity, political destiny, or maniacal skullduggery. Personally, I believe that greed, plain and simple, caused the petty bickering between the League's members, Stefan's usurpation, and the dissolution of the League. Regardless, the Star League collapsed and Galtor III felt the heat like a blast from a dropship. Trade dried up, refugees flooded the planet, and in 2784, Star League troops abandoned Galtor to join Kerensky's exodus. And yet for almost 20 years the war was something that happened out there, in the vastness of space. Then, on the eve of the new century, the first Draconis Combine dropships landed on the Wagnall Plain and claimed Galtor III for House Kurita. Very few of our ancestors resisted. Within hours, the flag of House Kurita flew above our planet. Life under the Draconis Combine was grim and sullen, replacing free enterprise with a crushing quota system. Many occupying soldiers and administrators came from disadvantaged worlds and harboured no sympathy for rich agricultural planets. The Galtorians lost rights and property, and many slaved in the fields while automated farm machinery lay rusting nearby. If one hesitated, one was thrown in jail. If one complained, one disappeared. Citizens slid into a kind of malaise as the suicide rate soared, and illness due to stress and depression doubled, then tripled. Farm production slipped, then finally collapsed as machines wore out and could not be replaced. For the first time in our history, famine struck the cities. A planet that once fed 1,000 stars struggled to feed even itself. In time, the whole structure of our world would fall apart. In 2905, the Federated Suns bombed the Kurita base on Galtor. Although Davian forces didn't invade, many Galtorians saw the attack as a signal for action. The farmers organised a resistance movement called the Blacks. Soon, disaffected labour unionists calling themselves the Whites joined the struggle, the joint leadership christening the movement the Black and Whites. The resistance quickly contacted New Avalon and requested support. although the Federated Suns promised help. Support was slow to come. At that time, Kurita kept a strong presence on all border worlds. Decades passed. Forces from the Draconis Combine and the Federated Suns battled around and on Kentari's 4, Mallory's world, and Harrow's Sun. Our resistance supplied valuable information to the Davian forces, but our hope of freedom faded, like morning mist. The fight for liberation. In the early years of the 31st century, a new breed of rebel leader would assume power on Galtor 3. I'm proud to say that I was one of them. The growing acceptance of Kurita rule among the Galtorians disturbed us. Something had to be done. But the plan we chose almost destroyed the planet. In 3013, Prince Ian Davian of the Federated Suns was killed in the successful recapture of Mallory's world. His brother Hansa succeeded him, and would eventually send weapons and agents to Galtor 3. By 3022, Kurita forces were spread thinly across the frontier with few reserves. Eager to seize the initiative, Prince Davian asked the rebel leaders for a revolt on Galtor 3 to coincide with his military advance. The Black and Whites agreed. While Davian forces pushed toward Proserpina, the Black and White forces attacked Kurita depots and bases all over Galtor. Luckily, the Draconis Combine forces billeted on Galtor 3 comprised barely a dozen battle mechs. Even so, the enemy fought a snarling, ripping, and sordid battle, and managed to keep many of their bases. The revolt on Galtor 3 enraged Takashi Kurita, who diverted 2 crack regiments to crush the revolt. The Combine mechs quickly shattered the Black and White's formation. After all, Vibra bombs and Inferno SRMs are no match for Vindicators and Battlemasters. News of the failed revolt on Galtor relieved the military high command on New Avalon. Kurita battle mechs on Galtor meant that there would be fewer units on the military district capital of Diran, the objective of the next Davian attack. However, pangs of conscience tormented Hansa Davian. The Galtorians had supported House Davian's cause for 125 years. They needed help, and he resolved to liberate the planet as soon as possible. Redirecting the Davian assault though would be difficult and jeopardize the entire strategic situation. Ironically, however, the move succeeded beyond Davian's expectations. The crack Kurita Sword of Light regiments had moved from Galtor 3 toward the Diran military district border, leaving a single regiment on Galtor 3. Federated Sun military forces would overwhelm the defenders, taking the planets Galtor and Marduk, destroying dozens of mechs and capturing a dozen more. The remaining Kurita units would limp back to Benjamin, and the southern sector of the Irizun prefecture of the Benjamin military district was almost cut in 2. Kurita military leaders reeled from the attack, scrambling to plug the gap in their lines. The pastoral Riesling's planet suddenly became the front line. Overnight, the planet would bristle with mechs, airstrips, fortifications, and support facilities. The toll of liberation for Galtor 3 was terrible though. Cities razed, forests burned, and whole communities wiped away. Over 35% of the population died, and a quarter of the survivors were left homeless. In the aftermath, Hansa Davian appointed me as planet administrator. We faced a laborious task to rebuild the planet, but my people accepted the burden with great dignity. To be free of tyranny is to be reborn. However, the horror and terror didn't end for Galtor 3. Some would say it was just beginning. Interim. Prince Davian devoted little time to study his new conquests. Intelligence operatives reported a disturbing House Lao military build-up on the Lao-Davian border. Davian spent a great deal of time watching the developing situation around the planets Redfield and Atlas, but he continued to keep his eye on the Draconis Combine. In 3024, Hansa Davian ordered a survey of all worlds captured in the last few years. Many contained rich finds of destroyed battle mechs and vehicles. In addition, some planets had hidden caches of priceless, irreplaceable parts and equipment dating back to the Star League era. To everyone's surprise, the sophisticated computers on New Avalon indicated an unusually rich deposit on Galtor 3. According to eyewitnesses, Davian read the preliminary survey reports skeptically. Computer reports were often wrong. What could possibly be left on a planet occupied by Kuritan forces for over 100 years? His cynicism proved correct when the first survey mission found the remains of a Star League base stripped of all usable parts. However, the preliminary survey reports would create the perfect bait. No Curitan commander could possibly resist a pristine Star League base filled with mechs and equipment. Such a find would guarantee the successful commander a laurel wreath and a triumphal procession on Luthien. Delighted by the thought, Davian fed the records to known Curita spies within his administration. The Draconis March border. In 3025, the Draconis March was stable and quiet. After the recapture of Galtor III, the Draconis March militia took over the defence of the sector, spreading 6 of its 10 regiments across the long border with Draconis Combine. The rest remained as a reserve to counter any Curitan thrust. Only a single battalion and the regimental HQ from Dahar IV Draconis March Militia Regiment, or Dahar DMM, defended Galtor III. The rest of the regiment occupied the planet Marduk and the space station refueling stop. A few lancers encamped on asteroids inside Curita space. Battalions of the Raman Draconis March Militia, or the Raman DMM, a much weaker Green Force, defended an even larger stretch of the frontier. Supporting these regiments was the Bremond DMM, famous as the only regular Davian regiment with a permanently assigned jump ship. The proud people of Galtor fielded their own army, the Galtor Irregulars, remnants of the Black and White Resistance movement. The Irregulars had only small amounts of outdated equipment and no training. Supplementing these weak infantry and army units was a loose collection of mercenary battlemechs called the Lone Wolves. Merely a group of individual lancers, the Wolves employ renegades from mercenarial house regiments, criminals and green kids trying to build a reputation. They had a knack for smelling blood, appearing immediately before a fight and offering their services to the natives. If they refuse to hire them, they find work with the attackers. Although lacking cohesion and direction, they fight with stubborn pride and wild maniacal abandon. To the Curita military district commander on Benjamin, General Yoriyoshi, the Davian forces on his border were only a nuisance. Riesling's planet contained Yoriyoshi's 17th Benjamin Regulars Regiment and some specialized assault aerospace fighters. The 3rd Benjamin Regulars Regiment occupied the fortified moons of the Tripoli system. A 3rd Regiment, the 6th Benjamin Regulars, were just one jump away at Irizun. With 3 Draconis Combine regiments facing 2 Federated Suns regiments, General Yoriyoshi worried about little. Operation Muffet. Davian quickly changed the unfavourable odds. Dubbing his plan Operation Muffet, he began spinning the web to trap Curita. With the highest priority and secrecy, 2 of Prince Davian's crack assault regiments arrived in the Galtor system. 1 battalion of the elite Alpha Regiment of the 12th Vegan Rangers landed immediately, while the rest of the regiment remained off-planet, ready to strike. Meanwhile, the 33rd Avalon Hussars set up on the Wagnall Plain, where the second part of Davian's plan came together. To perfect his plan, Davian ordered a fake camp created around the old Star League depot. Designed by his best engineers, the camp developed into one large trap, heavily defended with mines, tripwires, automatic firing weapons, and a small core of fanatical defenders. 5 rusted-out dropship hulls ready for the scrap heap were planted around the camp, completing the illusion of a major salvage operation in progress. All throughout Operation Muffet, the troops of the Federated Suns observed strict rules to maintain the illusion of an undefended world. The ambushers maintained strict radio silence, supply shipments remained at low levels, and furloughs were granted to the Dahar March Militia Battalion. Even the Galtor III populace was unaware of the increased troop strength. Only the presence of the Lone Wolves, with their uncanny ability to be in the right place for a fight, betrayed the carefully constructed veneer of peace. Simple, elegant, and well executed. The plan had all the Hansadavian trademarks. All that remained was to dangle the bait in front of the appropriate eyes. General Yoriyoshi. General Yoriyoshi, warlord of the Benjamin Military District, earned a reputation for being tough, battle-hardened, and able to smell a trap a parsec away. His appointment to the head of the Benjamin Military District caused many raised eyebrows in the Draconis Combine. He was promoted above many more competent administrators with more years of experience. Indeed, Yoriyoshi could barely handle the day-to-day administration of the district and leaned heavily on his subordinates. When he made a decision, the warlord thought with his gut instead of his head. Nonetheless, his slavish loyalty to Coordinator Takashi Kirita kept him firmly in power. The Dragon moves. Once he digested the importance of the Davian survey report, Yoriyoshi immediately put his men on alert and cancelled all leave and furlough. The Port Authority cleared supply lanes of commercial traffic, while technicians gave all military repairs rush priority. With his troops at the height of readiness, Yoriyoshi sat back and waited. Commander Yoriyoshi trusted no one except the Coordinator. The day he received the survey report, he sent it to Takashi Kirita, not realizing that the Coordinator already had a copy. Also possessing a copy of the report was Subhash Indrahar, director of the ISF, who passed it on to General Grieg Samsonov, Galadon Military District Commander, and a hated rival of General Yoriyoshi. To understand the intrigue of the court at Lufien a little better, this document includes an interview with a highly placed individual in the Kuritan household. Finding his credibility compromised after the Galtor Campaign, he was smuggled to safety somewhere in the Federated Suns. The following excerpt gives us an extraordinary glimpse into the inner workings of the Kuritan leadership. Only questions and answers that rated 99.9% reliable on the Truth Scanner have been included. You were close to Takashi Kirita, were you not? Oh yes, I was constantly around him, even in his private chambers. I was restricted only from the Black Room and some storage rooms. The Black Room? An area within the palace encased in a magma pulse magnetic field, absolutely secure against all types of eavesdropping devices. The walls were painted flat black to foil indirect microwave pulses, hence the name. What was the Coordinator's response to the survey report? Skeptical. He was a very suspicious man, trusting no one and suspecting everyone. He kept walking around and reading the cable. I think he suspected that it was too good to be true, yes. And yet he decided to attack? What made him take the bait? Well, you have to understand the way the Imperial Court works. Takashi's maintains his balance by keeping everyone else off theirs. The minute anyone seems too sure, too secure, that's when Takashi pulls out the rug. He's a master at playing off his commanders, playing them against each other. When he decided to attack, he decided to split command between Benjamin and the Galadon districts. Instead of using the 3 regiments of available Benjamin regulars, Benjamin would supply 2 regiments, Galadon would supply 1, and Takashi added some of his personal guard. So, even though he suspected a trap, Kirita saw Galtor as a way to keep his commanders in line? Something like that. You see, it wasn't only the ISF commanders. Subhash Indrahar of the ISF was also involved. I think Takashi is a little afraid of Indrahar. He always spoke very carefully around him. The real problem was the magnitude of the find. If the supply depot was really that big, he couldn't let any single commander capture the planet. Not only would such a general become incredibly powerful, he would also win much respect and popularity from the ruling class. A dangerous rival would then be born. That's why he decided to split the command between the 2 warlords. But Galtor fleet is clearly on the border of the Benjamin military district. Wasn't General Yoriyoshi upset at this obvious encroachment on his area? He was apoplectic. He almost resigned on the spot, especially because the Coordinator named General Grieg Samsonov as Joint Commander. Samsonov was the commander of the Galadon military district. Correct. Yoriyoshi and he hated each other from their cadet days at the Sunjang Academy. Didn't Takashi realize that their animosity would endanger the attack? Of course, but he had to chance it. He believed that his commanders feared him more than they hated each other. Anyway, he assigned personal spies to keep an eye out for any dirty dealings. Fortunately, they didn't do that good a job. Yes, well, I suppose. Can you outline the final battle plan drafted by Takashi Kirita? I'm not sure of all the details. Many finer points were worked out secretly in the Black Room. About 2 weeks after the survey report, Lufien issued reports to the troops in field. About 48 hours later, 2 regiments of Benjamin regulars were ready to move, but it took another 3 weeks for the Galadon regiment to reach the staging area. Even then, the regiments waited at the final jump points for another 2 weeks before the final orders were released. What took so long? I don't know. Just the normal bureaucratic foul-up, I imagine. So it took about 7 weeks for Kurita to attack. Just about. There was no hurry. Intelligence reports indicated that no material had left the planet, and Kurita was still concerned that he was walking into a trap. He was content to wait and see if Davian would get cold feet and show his hand. He almost did. Yes, I heard that. Funny, if he had, I might be interviewing you instead of the other way around. Things go wrong. Almost every military analyst believes that Hansa Davian's greatest strategic strength is his realization that a battle plan never works. Davian sees a plan as only a common base for change. War in the 31st century is too fluid to stick to a specific set of orders. At best, a plan lets everyone know from where they're coming and where they're going. The Prince's perspective on war explains his reaction to the news that the 2 of the 3 battalions of the 33rd Avalon Hussars still languished in their barracks on Kestrel just a week before the anticipated attack. Apparently, a lack of dropship parts prevented them from moving the entire regiment. Tragedy also weakened the Federated Sun's forces. A faulty sealant tube on the Union dropship Jasper caused a violent explosion upon liftoff on Marduk. 2 companies of French's battalion of the Dahar DMM were destroyed, and the repair and landing facilities were severely damaged. Investigators suspected Kurita guerrillas of causing this blast. All this Prince Davian took calmly, arranging special transport for the Hussars and sending special medical aid to Marduk. Then the real trouble started. The survey team on Galtor 3 found a real untouched Star League depot about 3,000 kilometers from the false site. The news stunned Prince Davian. Things like this happened in trashy novels, not in real life. The Star League depot was fact, and Davian had practically invited Kurita to take it from him. At this critical juncture, Hansa Davian slipped into a malaise that characterized his demeanor during the early days of the Galtor Campaign. No one could get him to make a decision or exercise his authority. He became obsessed with the campaign on the Lao border and left the local commanders to fend for themselves. Many speculate that the demands of 2 major campaigns simply overtaxed the prince. Another theory is that he actually suffered a medical disability that affected his judgment. Whatever the reason, Davian abruptly let go of the wheel, and the Galtor campaign drifted into dangerous waters.